Okay, hello again, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining Dragon Trail International for our April webinar. Today, we're going to be sharing the results of our Chinese Traveler Sentiment Report, which is based on a survey of more than 1,000 Chinese travelers. The report is being published today, and this is your first chance to see all of the results, including data on 2026 travel and the upcoming May Labor Day holiday, safety perceptions for destinations around the world, the impact of the Iran war on Chinese outbound tourism, social media inspiration for outbound travel, wellness, tourism, and more. My name is Sienna Perulis Cook, and I'm Dragon Trail's Director of Marketing and Communications. Joining me today to present the findings of the survey is Dragon Trail's research team, with Janice Meng in Shanghai and Tiana Tian joining from Beijing. We're going to start off the webinar today with a brief update on some of the latest China travel news before sharing the findings of our new Chinese Traveler Sentiment Report. The report is broken into 4 sections: 2026 travel and the May Labor Day holiday, destinations, including the impact of the Iran war on outbound travel, traveler behavior, including inspiration, planning, and spending and booking, and wellness and sports tourism. The presentation should last for around 40 or 45 minutes altogether, and then we will have time for a Q&A session at the end. You can ask questions at any point during the webinar by using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end during the Q&A session. Another thing to note is that we are recording this session, and later today we will be sending everybody a link to that recording, as well as a PDF of all of the presentation slides from today. So you will have all of the materials from today for your own future reference or to share with colleagues who you think might be interested. In case you're attending a Dragon Trail webinar for the first time today, I wanted to briefly introduce who we are and what we do. Dragon Trail International is a marketing solutions company headquartered in Beijing. And since our founding in 2009, we focused on marketing for Chinese outbound tourism, working with destinations, hotels, airlines, attractions, and other travel brands and businesses around the world to help them reach Chinese consumers and the Chinese travel trade. Our services include B2C and B2B digital marketing and content creation, offline, virtual, and hybrid events, research and strategy consulting, and market representation services. Our research arm, Dragon Trail Research, was established in 2019, and we've been conducting Chinese traveler sentiment surveys since the spring of 2020, as well as surveys of the Chinese travel trade since 2022. Our research services for clients include bespoke surveys, focus groups, travel trade insights, and more. Now, to illustrate the full suite of Dragon Trail's marketing services, I wanted to share a few examples of work that we've done over the past couple of months. From December 2025 to February 2026, we ran a campaign for the Polish National Tourism Organization to promote winter tourism to travelers in mainland China, as well as to Chinese living in Europe, with more than 9 million impressions on Rednote and WeChat. In January, we conducted a focus group in Shanghai and produced a bespoke report on senior travel for Tourism New Zealand. Also in January, we managed a 3-city B2B roadshow for the Egyptian Tourism Authority in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, which resulted in more than 1,500 face-to-face business matchmaking meetings between Chinese buyers and representatives from Egyptian tourism businesses. At the end of December, we launched a WeChat mini program for Abu Dhabi's Yas Island, designed for the Chinese travel trade, with convenient destination information, product routes, marketing resources, and cooperation opportunities with Yas Island's attractions, including Ferrari World, SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, and Yas Mall. And last year, we supported Marriott Vacation Club's China expansion with KOL and KOC influencer campaigns, media buy, and reputation management across Rednote, WeChat, Weibo, and programmatic advertising channels. So I think these examples illustrate the wide scope of our work and expertise, including both digital and offline marketing, as well as consumer and trade services. You can find more information about our services, more details about these and other case studies, and lots of free resources on Chinese outbound travel and marketing on our website, www.dragontrail.com. So now let's kick off today's webinar content with some of the latest news about Chinese travel. How is the Chinese outbound travel market doing so far in 2026? During the Chinese New Year holiday in February, border crossings by mainland Chinese citizens were up by more than 10% year on year. More recently, during the Qingming holiday at the beginning of April, which is not traditionally a peak holiday for outbound travel, border crossings were up by just over 9%. China's currency has been stronger than in recent years, and it's expected to be around 6.8 renminbi to the US dollar in Q2 of this year, giving Chinese tourists higher purchasing power overseas. And a few visa updates. South Korea has recently announced the extension of its multiple entry visas from 5 years to 10 years for residents of 14 Chinese cities. And this, of course, is in addition to South Korea's visa-free policy for group tourists from China, which was enacted last year. Following Russian news reports about the extension of visa-free travel to China for Russian citizens, to extend its reciprocal visa-free policy for Chinese citizens for another year until September 2027. And finally, following a visit to Beijing from the leader of Taiwan's KMT party, it looks like tourism between Taiwan and the Chinese mainland could start to resume, with plans for more direct flights to start again and individual travel for residents of Shanghai and Fujian. There has been a lot of news recently regarding international flights to and from China, which is impacting the potential of outbound travel in both positive and negative ways. The summer aviation season began at the end of March. Visa HQ, a website, said it was, quote, the biggest single day overhaul of routes since China fully reopened its borders. This included the first post-pandemic flights to India and North Korea, as well as lots of new and increased routes to European destinations and Australia. Chinese airlines are currently undertaking a major expansion of routes to Europe, adding nearly 2,900 European flights to their summer flight schedules, with lots of new and increased services. Chinese carriers have a major advantage here in that they can fly over Russian airspace, and Middle Eastern airspace closures make them even more competitive. So the airlines have really leaned into this, and it may benefit Chinese travel to European destinations over the coming months. However, there are also a lot of flight cancellations that are impacting where Chinese travelers can go and also impacting the airlines. With an ongoing diplomatic dispute, around half of flights between China and Japan have been canceled, and this is primarily impacting the Chinese carriers. Then we are starting to feel the impact of the Iran war on the availability and price of jet fuel, and this is leading to some major cancellations of flights between China and Southeast Asia, especially by low-cost carriers, and impacting trips that have been booked for the upcoming May Labor Day holiday. Flights from China to Southeast Asia are currently about 18% more expensive on average than they were last year at this time. And some Australia flights have also been canceled. Analysts say that the situation is likely to get worse before it gets better, and we expect that there will unfortunately be a negative impact on regional outbound travel for the upcoming May holiday, though it remains to be seen how big this impact will be and how long it will last. But to end this section on a more optimistic note, Etihad announced a major expansion in connectivity between Abu Dhabi and China last week, with 5 new routes and 28 weekly flights starting from the end of October. This is a significant development, and it shows strong confidence in the longer-term potential of the Chinese outbound travel market. So now let's find out more about Chinese travelers' plans for the May holiday and beyond with the results of our new consumer survey. As a bit of background, this is now our 13th Chinese traveler sentiment survey and the 6th year that we've surveyed Chinese consumers about their travel plans and preferences. The survey was conducted between the 16th and the 20th of March with 1,038 valid responses. We controlled the demographic makeup of survey respondents to reflect the Chinese outbound travel market in areas like the male-female ratio, age group, and city of residence. All survey respondents have an interest in travel, and 47% of them have previously traveled outbound. We'll share most of the results of the survey here, and you will get a copy of the webinar slides after the presentation, but you can also access the full report for free on the Dragon Trail website. So now to get us started with the first part of our survey results, I'm going to turn over to market research analyst Tiana Tian.
Thank you, Sienna. Also, for in the first part, we will talk about the 2026 travel experience and plans and something about the May Labor Day holiday. As for the outbound travel experience and plans for 2026, as of mid-March, 4% of survey respondents had already taken an outbound trips in 2026, and another 23% had booked their first outbound journey of the year. Compared with last year, overall outbound travel interest in 2026 has softened slightly from 75% in spring 2025 to 72% this year, though it remains higher than during the same period in 2024. In this part, we will take a closer look at where these travelers have gone, what factors influence their outbound travel decisions, and the outlook for the 2026 May Labor Day holiday. Let's first take a look at where Chinese travelers have traveled so far in 2026. Among surveyed Chinese travelers who had already traveled outbound in 2026 by mid-March, South Korea was the most visited destination, followed by Macau, Japan, and Thailand. Iceland once again made it into the top ranking of visited destinations, from being on travelers' wish list to making it into top 10 in 2025. Iceland has now reached the top 5, though with a very small sample size. New Zealand, similar to the same period last year, remains among the most popular destinations. What influences Chinese travelers' choice of outbound destinations? Survey respondents identified the international security situation as the top factor, with 85% saying it has extreme or significant impact on their outbound travel decisions. Personal financial situation is the second most influential factor, extremely or significantly impacting 76% of surveyed Chinese travelers' outbound travel decisions. Travel costs and work-life arrangements are the other two key influencing factors, chosen by 71% and 70% of surveyed respondents respectively, as having an extreme or significant impact on their destination choices. We asked survey respondents who had outbound travel plans about their intended outbound travel window over the next 12 months. The results are similar to last year. Summer vacation and the National Day holiday in October are the peak travel period, each chosen by 50% of surveyed Chinese outbound travelers. The May Labor Day holiday is another peak period, with 24% of respondents planning to travel outbound during that time. Next, we will dive into the top destinations and travel plans for the 2026 May holiday. Among surveyed Chinese travelers who have outbound travel plans for 2026 May Day holiday, South Korea is the most popular destination, chosen by 16.3% of respondents. After ranking as the top destinations for the 2025 National Day holiday in our last sentiment survey, it has again taken the top spot. Macau is the second most popular destination. Thailand has seen a moderate rebound, with 9% of respondents planning to visit, compared to 5% during the 2026 National Day holiday in our last sentiment survey. In contrast, the percentage of Chinese travelers choosing to visit Japan fell from 9.5% to 5.1% over the same comparison period. What companions are survey respondents traveling with this May Day Labor Day holiday? Partner or spouse is the top choice, selected by 54% of respondents. Friends come next at 42%. Meanwhile, 23% of travelers plan to bring their children along, followed by traveling with parents. It is worth noting that 5% of respondents intend to travel with their pets, a trend supported by the fact that some airlines have introduced pet-friendly cabin policies. Uh, we asked we asked surveyed Chinese outbound travelers about their intended travel duration during the 2026 May Labor Day holiday. The most common choices was 3 to 5 days, selected by 48% of respondents. Notably, 44% of the respondents plan to take extra leave to extend their holiday, with 33% expecting to travel for 6 to 10 days and 11% planning to travel for more than 10 days. As for their total outbound travel budget during the May holiday, 10,000 to 20,000 RMB per person is the most common range, chosen by 28% of respondents. Notably, 14% of respondents have budgets over 50,000 RMB per person for the May Day holiday, with 7% of surveyed outbound travelers have budgets above 100,000 RMB. Relaxation and leisure is the top travel purpose for the May Day holiday, chosen by 50% of surveyed Chinese outbound travelers. Tasting exotic cuisine ranks second, closely followed by enjoying nature scenery and experiencing local culture and history. Next, I will turn over to Sienna to talk about regional interests and destination safety insights.
Thank you, Tiana. Now, the second section of our report focuses on destinations for outbound tourism, as well as the impact of the Iran war. So first, let's look at interest in outbound travel to different world regions. Overall, this has softened for most regions since last year, though interest is still higher for most regions than it was in the spring of 2024. Southeast Asia, which had seen declining scores throughout 2025, is the biggest exception to the softening, and South Asia is the other region that has an improved score. The order of the destination preference list is mostly unchanged from last year, with the exception of the Middle East, which has dropped from 7th place down to 10th, with a decrease of 0.4 points or 14% since last spring. Next, we asked survey respondents to rate the safety of traveling to 26 outbound destinations with the option of safe, unsafe, or unsure. Several destinations have seen big changes in their safety perceptions since our September 2025 survey, and we'll look at some of these in more detail in the following slides. In the Middle East, safety rankings for the UAE and Saudi Arabia have seen significant decreases, though Egypt's safety score stayed stable. Meanwhile, with an official Chinese government travel advisory, Japan has suffered an even bigger decline than the Gulf countries. On the other hand, Thailand has moved up the rankings by 7 places, and Vietnam's score improved slightly too. Australia and most European destinations saw improved safety ratings since last year. At the top of the chart, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Switzerland are still seen as the 3 safest travel destinations on our list. Now, let's look at a few countries' safety rankings in more detail, starting with the good news for Thailand. As I mentioned just now, Thailand moved up the rankings by 7 places, and its unsafe rating, which you can see on the red line here, it improved from 48% in the last survey to just 34% in the current survey. Meanwhile, it also has the highest safe rating that Thailand has received in the last 5 years, as you can see from the blue line there. And the unsafe ratings is also one of the lowest that we've seen in the past 5 years. So this all indicates that Thailand's image has now recovered from the kidnapping incident involving a Chinese actor at the beginning of 2025. We see a very different story for Japan. The Chinese government has repeatedly issued travel safety warnings for Japan since the start of a diplomatic incident in November of last year. And we see Japan's safe rating, the blue line, plummeting from 57%, where it was for all of last year, down to 37% in the current survey. Meanwhile, the unsafe rating is the highest it's been since China reopened for international travel in 2023. Analyzing our data a little bit further, we did find that more experienced and active international travelers, as well as younger survey respondents, were more likely than the average to say that Japan was safe. Those who said it was unsafe were more likely to be older and to have children, and they were also more likely to not have outbound travel experience and not have outbound travel plans for 2026. Now, let's look at the Gulf countries. The survey was conducted just a few weeks after the start of the Iran war, with an official travel warning and airspace closure in effect during the time of the survey. As you can see, the safety rankings for the UAE and Saudi Arabia had been very stable over the past 2 years, and then show a dramatic change this spring, with more respondents saying that these countries are unsafe to travel to than safe for the first time in our polling. Just how much impact had the Iran war already had on survey respondents' travel plans? Within just a few weeks, 43% of survey respondents said they had been affected in some way, with the largest number of these saying that they were potentially reconsidering future travel to the Middle East and North Africa. 3% said their travel to other world destinations had been impacted by flight cancellations, and 2% said they had originally planned to travel to MENA destinations but had decided to go to other destinations instead. So we can see that the impacts go beyond just the immediately affected areas. Almost all respondents said that the recent situation in the Middle East had affected their willingness to travel in the region, with 2/3 saying the war had significantly decreased their willingness to travel there. Understandably, this impact is most pronounced in the short term, although 57% said they wouldn't consider traveling to the Middle East and North Africa in the next 3 months. This drops to just 19% when we look at the future 1 to 3 years. We can also see the percentage that say that they want to travel to this part of the world growing as we look further ahead into the future. Now, what will it take to make Chinese travelers more willing to consider traveling to the Middle East and North Africa? Unsurprisingly, the majority say that the local situation would need to stabilize with significantly improved overall safety. Consumers will also be looking to destinations and the travel industry to support with additional security measures, including providing safety information and improved Chinese language services and emergency support. Our advice to travel brands in the region at this time is to use the pause in travel to improve China readiness and maintain communications with Chinese travel trade partners. When things start to settle, there will be a lot of important work to do to rebuild trust and traveler confidence through fam trips and influencer marketing. And products and marketing will need to be tailored to suit those travelers who are likely to return first, especially small customized groups of experienced travelers. Please do get in touch with us after the webinar if you'd like to talk more about recovery strategies for regional destinations and businesses. Now I'm going to turn things over to market analyst Janice Mung to present on traveler behavior and wellness and sports travel.
Thank you, Sienna. So in this section, we took a close look at the travel behavior of Chinese tourists in 2026, including how they allocate their travel budget, what inspires them to travel outbound, and how they book their trips. First, we asked the survey respondents who had previously traveled outbound how they were planning to adjust their travel spending for their next outbound trips. Over half of them said they would increase spending on activities and experiences, with a further 49% planning to increase spending on dining. The results showed a significant shift towards experiential consumption among Chinese outbound travelers. In contrast, fewer than one-third of respondents were planning to increase spending on more functional categories, such as accommodation and transportation. Comparing respondents from different age groups, we found that young travelers aged 18 to 24 showed the highest willingness to increase spending across all categories, including shopping, logistics, and experiential consumption. We continued to track the most influential channels for outbound travel information. RedNote, also known as Xiaohongshu, remains the top source among Chinese travelers, chosen by 53% of respondents in this survey. Douyin and online travel platforms like Ctrip followed closely at 48% and 42% respectively. Chinese travelers' preferences for information sources vary by age group. Social media platforms such as RedNote and Douyin are used more widely by younger travelers. Online travel platforms, recommendations from family and friends, and travel agencies and tour guides are particularly influential among elder travelers. To have a deeper understanding of the impact of social media content, we asked the respondents which outbound destinations they were most inspired to visit on social media and why they were attracted. A wide range of destinations came up in their responses, with the Maldives being the most frequently mentioned. Chinese travelers were most attracted to its natural scenery, including the quiet islands and clear seawater, which provide a relaxing escape. More distant destinations, such as Iceland, New Zealand, and Switzerland, also inspired Chinese tourists to visit for their unique landscapes. Leisure and enjoyment are another major draw, featuring gourmet and shopping experiences and urban leisure in destinations such as South Korea and Thailand. Survey respondents also mentioned destinations that have distinct cultural appeal, such as Japan, Russia, Italy, and Egypt. Content highlighting practical considerations and travel convenience, such as visa-free policies, perceived safety and stable environments, barrier-free communication, proximity to China, as well as well-developed infrastructure and cost efficiency, gives Chinese tourists a strong sense of assurance and increases their intent to visit. Now let's move on to booking. Chinese online booking platforms such as Ctrip and Qunar have repeatedly been selected as the most common channel for booking outbound travel. In our recent survey, 63% of respondents who had traveled outside mainland China in the past said they usually book outbound travel through these channels. Official channels of airlines, hotels, and attractions are the next most popular outbound travel booking channel, chosen by half of Chinese outbound travelers. International booking platforms rank third, selected by 39% of respondents, and they are more frequently used by travelers aged 18 to 24, with 47% of this age group choosing them. Social media platforms such as RedNote and Douyin also have a substantial impact on outbound travel bookings, with 38% of respondents booking through these channels. Online and offline channels of traditional travel agencies are more preferred by respondents aged 45 to 65, with 49% and 25% of this age group choosing them, respectively. In the last section of our survey, we took an in-depth look at wellness and sports travel, an emerging niche market that is gaining attention as more people seek relaxation and prioritize well-being in travel amid a rapidly changing environment. The first thing we explored was how Chinese tourists view wellness experiences when they are traveling. Our survey results show that 60% of respondents are willing to integrate some wellness experiences into their trips, even though they do not consider wellness as the primary purpose of travel. Another 13% would plan a trip especially for wellness purposes. Chinese travelers find wellness experiences most appealing for their relaxation and stress-relieving benefits, with 81% of survey respondents selecting it. Additionally, around half of travelers seek unique destination experiences, quality time with family and friends, and enhanced mental well-being through wellness experiences in travel. This brings us to the kinds of wellness activities that are most in demand among Chinese travelers. Spa and hot spring experiences and nature-based healing activities such as forest bathing and hiking are the most popular, each chosen by around 60% of respondents. Other popular wellness activities among Chinese travelers include healthy dining, daily fitness exercises, yoga and meditation, and beauty treatments, highlighting the all-around appeal of wellness in travel. What are Chinese travelers willing to pay for wellness travel? 84% of our survey respondents said they were willing to pay more for wellness experiences or services during outbound travel, but most of them would only pay a limited premium. Around 40% said they would only pay an additional 5% or less, and nearly 30% would consider paying 5 to 10% extra for wellness activities when traveling outbound. Only 14% were willing to pay more than 10% extra. We also took a deep dive into sports-related activities in travel. 89% of the 493 outbound travelers surveyed had participated in at least one sports activity during their past outbound trips. Outdoor nature activities such as hiking and cycling are the most popular, selected by 65% of outbound travelers. 40% said they had participated in more demanding sports, such as marathons and skiing. 36% had visited famous sports venues, and 34% had watched sports events, such as the World Cup when traveling outbound. Although participating in sports activities is prevalent among tourists with previous outbound travel experience, only 26% of overall survey respondents consider sports experiences or resources to be important when choosing an outbound travel destination. We took a closer look at the demographic characteristics of these 272 respondents who value sports in their destination choice. These sports-driven travelers tend to be young to middle-aged, male, family-oriented, and relatively affluent compared with the overall survey respondents. And now to conclude our survey results by reviewing some of the key takeaways, I will turn over to Sienna.
Thank you, Janice. That now brings us to the end of our survey results and time to review 6 of the top takeaways. First, most May holiday trips, will be intra-regional, with South Korea, Macau, Thailand, and Hong Kong the top destinations. Close to half of respondents plan to take extra leave to extend their trips beyond the official 5-day public holiday. Second, there have been major shifts in destination preferences and safety rankings. Thailand is experiencing a strong comeback among Chinese tourists this year, with improved safety rankings, a boost in the percentage of survey respondents who plan to travel there for the May holiday, and greater traveler intention to visit Southeast Asia. In contrast, the impact of China's travel advisory for Japan is reflected in a sharp decline in public perception about Japan's safety as a travel destination. With the outbreak of war in the region, safety rankings and travel intention for the Middle East both saw considerable drops. Third, the Iran war has already had a profound impact on Chinese travel plans. Survey respondents identified the international security situation as the top factor influencing their outbound travel decisions. 43% of survey respondents' travel plans have already been impacted by the Iran war, and we see softening travel intention to nearly all world regions. 2/3 said the war had significantly decreased their willingness to travel to the Middle East and North Africa, but this impact is most pronounced in the short term. Fourth, 56% of Chinese outbound travelers say they are planning to increase spending on activities and experiences, with 49% planning to increase spending on dining. Young travelers aged 18 to 24 showed a stronger intention to increase spending across all categories, including shopping and accommodation, compared to travelers from other age groups. Fifth, RedNote remains the top source of outbound travel information, chosen by 53% of respondents in the survey. Following closely are OTAs like Ctrip. Younger travelers were even more likely to use RedNote and Douyin, with older travelers more inspired by OTAs and people in their social networks. Chinese travelers said they were inspired on social media to visit a wide range of destinations, with content featuring natural scenery the most influential. And finally, the majority of Chinese travelers are open to integrating some wellness experiences into their trips, especially with the goal of relaxation and stress relief. Spa and hot springs experiences and nature-based activities are most popular. Most are willing to pay a limited premium to add wellness activities into their travel experience. As I mentioned before, we will be sharing today's presentation slides with everyone later today, as well as a link to read and download the full April 2026 Chinese Traveler Sentiment Report. But if you can't wait to see it, it is actually available already on the resources section of the Dragon Trail website. Also on the resources section of the site, you'll find a sentiment reports tab where you can access all of our past sentiment reports. And in addition to sentiment reports, our free online resources also include videos, Chinese social media rankings for international tourism brands, marketing case studies and guides, and much more. You can sign up for our newsletter for monthly updates and future webinar invitations, and follow us on LinkedIn or WeChat. Now, one more thing before we start the Q&A session, I wanted to let you know about our next webinar coming up on Tuesday, the 12th of May. The topic is China's luxury travel market, with content from our newest white paper, which is a collaboration with Dong Luxury Collection. It's based on surveys and interviews with hundreds of Chinese high net worth individuals, luxury travel agents, and global luxury hospitality suppliers. This is a unique and incredibly in-depth report, and we can't wait to share the findings with you. You can find more information and the registration link for that webinar on the event section of the Dragon Trail website, and you'll also receive the registration link later today with all of the webinar materials. So you're ready to take your questions, and you can send those in using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel.